What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. I am Pat Sheehan with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, happy Monday, man, and happy December.
Crazy, dude. Crazy. Year's almost over. Fuck. Look at our Spotify playlist. How is Francis and the Lights and Stir Fry, our first two songs? Those songs came out this year somehow. Wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you want to go look at that and follow it, go to Spotify and search Nowstalgia Best of 2018. Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable. We've reviewed I don't know how many different
Over 100.
pieces of music alone, and then movies, TV. It's been a hell of a year, and I'm starting to look at that year-end list, and I talk about it a lot because I think I like to think about it in terms of how where am I putting this in terms of the culture for the year. But when you finally come down to it, man, it's a little overwhelming when you got so much to work from.
For sure. It's a lot.
We got a lot to talk about today. So before we jump into all this music and Green Book a little bit later on, please subscribe on YouTube. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod and follow us any way you want to there. We're on iTunes, Google Play, however you like to listen to podcasts. We're pretty much there. And give us a rating and review on iTunes. All the feedback is appreciated. So yeah, I don't even really want to do this review, but we should, because it was premiered at number 2 on the Billboard album charts.
Yeah,
did some numbers.
Only 3 days on the chart too, because the late release too. So he's always done numbers though. Yeah, fucking 6ix9ine.
Maybe the most appropriate title name to describe an artist, Dummy Boy. Jesus Christ, this. Give me a little bit of background on 6ix9ine. Why don't I like him, Dave?
I mean, you don't really need that much background because he hasn't been around for much more than the past year plus. Like, it hasn't been that long, which is kind of crazy how big he's gotten in such a short time. And then, as anyone who has a pulse online knows, he's now in jail awaiting a September 2019 sentencing for various RICO drug-related charges and whatnot. That's after he kind of got away with the sexual misconduct, sexual act with a minor charge from before. So he's had a lot of legal issues. It's actually really funny. If you go on vulture.com, great website, they have a piece called The Complete History of Tekashi 6ix9ine's like legal issues or something like that. And it's funny because it's always back at the top of the site when they update it with new information, because there's always new information because this dude can't stay out of trouble. But that's also why he got famous, because he's a troll, he's a bully, he's a disrespectful person. That was his brand, right? And that's also in his music. And I mean, we didn't review Day 6ix9ine. That was the debut mixtape from earlier this year that had Gummo, that big first single, which literally only dropped like last fall. Like, it's really been short. But this new project, I mean, it had a lot of his other street singles since, and the biggest song was Fifi with Nicki Minaj, which obviously was a big hit. But I think the only reason we wanted to even review this is partially because it came out earlier in the week, like literally on Monday, so we had time to listen to it before these other albums we were more interested in. So it's kind of a logistical reason we're actually talking about him. But yeah, I think it is interesting to look at, though, because this could be the last real project we hear from 6ix9ine for some time, because he's facing some really serious charges, and he's probably getting denied bail, so he's probably not going to be recording much for a long time. So the fact that this is what we were left with is pretty underwhelming, but that's honestly been his whole career. So, I mean, what did you think as someone who, like me, is not a fan?
I mean, I thought there were some songs that stood out. I mean, it's feature dominated. I feel like it's pretty much like, okay, this is gonna be my song with Nicki and Kanye. This is my song with Nicki. This is my song with Kanye. Here's A Boogie. Like, fine, whatever. Like, it was nice to hear all those people drop verses. I actually thought Kanye sounded pretty competent on these, which is encouraging, and hopefully he's carrying that same spirit onto Turbo Graphics whenever we get it, or no, what is
Yandi.
it? It's Yandi. Sorry, Yandi now. If that's even the name when it comes out.
So
I
help
just
me God.
don't give a shit about this guy. It honestly is where I stand with it. I think seems to be a pretty knuckleheaded person, to say the least. And I don't really understand. I understand why I guess these stars might want to like collaborate with him in order to up their fan base, but it's also like what's the cost of that? You know, like Kanye being associated with this person, is this really something that he needed to do in order to get more fans? Kanye's already probably one of the most famous people in the world. Like, you don't need to be doing these sort of songs. So not really sure what the gain is there for them, but the album, in terms of what it is, it's fine.
Yeah, I think you're being a little too nice. I mean, he gets dominated by all of these features. Heck, I even like Tory Lanez. He was way better than, and like that. And that's the thing. It's like 6ix9ine as a if we're just gonna talk about him strictly musically, as a vocalist, he's incredibly one note. You know his, Blicky with a sticky flow. You know that shouty, aggressive, pitter patter bars. But that's literally all he can do when he's rapping. And he's tried to do new things since in this new year. Like Fifi, for example, that's a different flow. The problem is it's super washed out on the Murder Beats beat, and then Nick kills him anyway with the feature. He tries to do reggaeton sounds, which he's Dominican. I guess that's fine. Problem is he's a bad singer, and B, if you're doing with Anwel AA, another guy who just got out of jail, but someone who actually makes that kind of music, you're gonna get creamed on those songs too. So it just every time there's a feature on this, it was better. I think Little Baby again crushed him on TikTok.
Well, and I think that's actually why I liked the album. It was like the parts I liked were these people doing their thing and being good at it, and then when it was 6ix9ine, I could just like tune out. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I also got to say, I really wish that Bobby Shmurdaverse on the phone from jail sounded better. The mix is trash. And again, he recorded on a phone from jail. I can't be too judgmental. But,
right.
It's definitely free Bobby before it's free 6ix9ine. Let's put it that way.
Well, hopefully 6ix9ine was taking notes, because he's going to be recording a few verses from jail. You know what? I don't really give a shit about this guy. Let's move on to someone that I'm a lot more intrigued by. Mask the Slump God dropped was the second album of the year after Book of Eli.
I think that technically Eli was a mixtape, but yeah, I think this is okay. I think we're calling this his debut album.
Interesting.
But I don't know. It's still a half hour. It's probably kind of a tape. I don't know.
Yeah, awesome cover art though.
Fucking great, right? Love it.
I went to the Met last week, and I was like, if I had seen this in the Met, I would have been like taken aback, but also so pumped, because it's a boss ass it's a boss ass cover of him just like an admiral uniform or something like that.
If you're watching on YouTube, which if you're not, please subscribe. I'm holding it up to my camera. It's not really coming through, but it's kind of like the General Soreness Jimmy Butler meme, if you're familiar.
Yeah.
But way more like portraity. Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Fucking awesome. And this album in general, I thought was pretty good. Book of Eli was pretty dark and like kind of grimy in a lot of ways, and this was not nearly as dark. At least in I guess I didn't really tune into lyrical content as much as I did Book of Eli, but just in terms of like overall vibe, it's a lot less dark. And I think the energy he brings throughout is what really caught me with this. He's very infectious, and I found myself. I went actually from listening to 6ix9ine today to like prepare for this to Ski Mask, and I was like, wow, this guy's so much better. It's unbelievable. What did you think of Stokeley?
Yeah, I agree. I think Stokeley is much more humorous, more comic than Eli, and both having dark lyrics and then also having weird jokey lyrics. Those are two of Ski Mask's strengths, and I think he definitely leans into the jokes more. But at the same time, like you said, the vibe makes sense. It has a real vibe on this project, and it's funny because he actually does do some like non-rapping singing vocals on this, which is more or less new for him, and I thought it worked fine for what he was trying to do. At the end of the day, his strength is still just rapping his ass off, something that 6ix9ine doesn't do well. Ski Mask. Like, listen, my favorite song on this is called "Faucet Failure" towards the end, and
It's a good one.
I think that like his flow on that rules. I think it's one of my favorite Ski Mask songs, and I think "Get Geeked" was really good. And then even I really like "Ski" on Nuketown, and that was before Juice WRLD comes in with the feature with really yelling delivery, something I haven't really gotten from Juice WRLD this year. So
intense.
Yeah, I think overall, like I said with Eli, I don't think Ski Mask will ever become a mainstream rap star, but the strength of hip hop these days is that there's so many little lanes and avenues, and Ski Mask definitely has his lane. He knows what he can do, and he's really good at it. So I like to recommend him to people because he is quite good at what he does.
Yeah, definitely. And just to kind of throw one more song out there, I really liked. I thought Foot Fungus was really good. I really liked the beginning with like the percussion in that. It's just like so heavy. It really like sucks you in. So definitely check out Stokeley. And if you're a college kid, go buy a poster of that album art because it's fucking awesome. Meek Mill, championships. Guys, Eagles win 1 championship and Philly fucking loses its mind, dude.
Is that what it's about? Or is it about not getting out of jail?
Yeah, obviously. Meek is interesting because recording was when him and Drake were really having beef. And I'm pretty sure we have a podcast where we talked about how Drake just absolutely bodied him, like with the PowerPoint and everything.
But yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, the PowerPoint at OVO Fest was fucking mean. Drake crushed him, and it's funny just because I remember being so far out on Meek, partially because I was already out on him musically, and then having Drake crush him culturally. I was like, all right, Meek's done. But I think I'm a lot closer to being back now. I don't know. It's pretty interesting that I never really expected to get all this way. He's like 31. I never thought I'd become a fan of Meek Mill again, but here we are.
He's made a fucking comeback, and since he got out of jail, I mean, he fucking rang that bell at the Sixers, and then he came out and he dropped that 5-track like EP, and
into the summer,
yeah, and we were like, it's pretty good. Like there's something here. This album, Championships, goes fucking hard. I think the only knock I really have on it is I think it's a little long and can feel a little bit repetitive by the end. But like up until Oodles and Noodles Kids, like that shit is fucking fire to me. And even after that, I thought the song 21 on it was really great. It just like you put it on, you just kind of want to run through a wall, and it's so funny because like Meek, I keep thinking about that meme of him like running around like after he got out of jail with like that thing, he's just like cheesing. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but he's got to be like doing that all the time now because this guy has had the biggest turnaround the last 2 years that I can remember.
Yeah, and I mean to that point, I think you mentioned 21. I think all the features on this are awesome, and he doesn't get bodied by these features. He really complements them well. And Cardi B, Drake, obviously, Rick Ross, and Jay-Z. We can talk about that one in a second. But like, I think the reason I like Meek more on Championships than I liked on DC4 or Wins and Losses or even Dreams More Than Money back when the Drake beef popped, like he has some more substance to him now, and it's because of his struggles with the judicial system, and like the fact that he like can like bring his street rap and really talk about like substantive struggle now, I think really helps him lyrically. And obviously he's always been like a good rapper. He has a good flow, but I always thought he was a little samey towards that, bad part. But now I think it's he's really turned around, and I think he definitely feels motivated and he sounds good. So I'm very pleased with this, gotta say.
Yeah, what was your favorite feature on here? I agree, a lot of them were really great.
I would say Drake I thought was great. Just because Rico on 2015 album, that was the song where Meek accused Drake of ghostwriting and whatnot. That song was hot. That was the hottest song on Meek's debut album. And now this is their first song since, and Drake really brings it on this. But also, I thought Cardi dropped really hot 16 too. And then even Rick Ross, a really inspired feature. Obviously, the F word's unfortunate, but the shots he took at 6ix9ine, other than that, I definitely vibed with. So, and even 21, he's been on a great feature run.
Yeah.
Really excited for that mixtape if it is in fact coming this week.
Yeah, I think Going Bad with Drake is by far the standout of this, but there really isn't a bad song on here. I think there's some that are definitely stronger than others. You actually highlighted What's Free with Rick Ross and Jay-Z. I thought that song also went pretty hard. So, and Cardi also, like anything she's on right now turns to gold. So just keep putting her on stuff, please. Definitely check out Championships. And let's jump to Earl Sweatshirt. All right, so Earl dropped some rap songs. And I don't know, it's interesting because my first listen to this album, I was kind of like, I don't really know about this. This sounds really like almost like I'm listening to like an old record. Like it sounded incredibly like I don't know, like fuzzy at times, and also at times it was kind of like jarring, like the way that the samples were so chopped up and so looped. And then I listened to it a second time and I was like, oh, this is fucking great. And I'm not really sure what it was about the second listen. And the more I think about it, the more I think it was probably, I think the loops and the samples seem to really hit for me. But Earl just is so fucking good at rapping. It's like insane how good he is. And he's what, like 25 at this point?
24, yeah.
24. And this is his third album and like fourth or fifth project.
Fourth solo project, third album. Yeah, of course he was on the Odd Future projects as well.
What was your take on this album? Because I think it was a bit surprising for what Earl's put out before.
Yeah, no, honestly, I wasn't that surprised because we had those two singles, Nowhere to Go and The Mint, and those were basically what the rest of this album was. They were dense, conscious raps, you know? And like you said, there is that weird, like, fuzzy vibe that takes getting used to. But Earl was getting to this kind of lyrical content in his last project, I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside. That was really the first breakaway from what he was doing with Odd Future. And it's funny because you think about Earl, he is this incredibly lauded lyricist, lauded rapper that has totally rejected fame. And it's really quite an interesting story. Like you said, he's only 24, but we've known about him since he was 16. And it's been quite the long journey. Obviously, him and Tyler are still friendly, but have gone their separate ways musically because they're very much in different lanes. And what we have with Earl, I'm really happy that he came back, even if this is a short project with only 25 minutes or whatever it is like you said, on second listen, once you get into this vibe and you kind of get accustomed to what you're listening to, he raps his ass off to the surprise of nobody. And he has a lot to say. I still need to keep listening because, some of those songs where his delivery is quite slow, he's still saying a lot. But in other songs like Cold Summers or The Bends, these are like classic Earl rapping his ass off songs. So I was a big fan of some rap songs. And I think obviously it's not a project for everyone. This is a project for people that either are accustomed or attracted to his darker, sadder lyrics or are big fans of technical rap ability, right? But if you're a 6ix9ine fan, you're probably not an Earl Sweatshirt fan. So it's definitely an acquired taste.
And he self-produces too, which I think is really pretty amazing because you think of like what Kanye does and how he's so known for chopping up samples and putting them in interesting parts and using that to make interesting songs. This is in a very similar vein. It's funny though because you talked about how Tyler and him have such different lanes. I do think one thing that they share is an interest in similar sounding music because like the jazzy vibes from Flower Boy, I think really come through in this. And it's interesting that they have that same through line of musical interest because, Earl moved from being West Coast to collaborating with a lot of East Coast people, especially on the last album and then on to this one. especially like Standing on the Corner is someone that stands out. And also what Navy Blue on The Mint is a New York rapper. But it seems like they still have that, I don't know, that connection that you wouldn't, I don't think anyone who listened to Odd Future when they first were forming, like 10 years ago now, would have ever expected. And they become these awesome musicians. We talked about the internet as well, who lauded for their musical abilities. Odd Future, I think, blew away everybody for what they became from what they were originally seen as.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's I mean, on one hand, like selfishly, I wish we had like a Vince feature, because him and Vince are still close. They were hanging out at the Mac Miller tribute, like recently. So, and there's pictures of them in the studio, on social media, last month or something. So they're so cool. And obviously, as we've watched Vince, who was an Odd Future affiliate, not really a member, but he was cool with all of them from their early goings. As we've watched him blossom, and we reviewed FM, of course, check that review out, SoundCloud.com Nostalgia Pod. But we watched Vince, pop off. We watched Tyler totally bloom with Flower Boy, and Earl continue to, just do what he always has done best. It's, I kind of would love to see them reunite with, their power levels have risen. It would be cool, but still good.
Interestingly, I was trying to think of a comparable for Earl. Is there anybody you can think of? It's tough.
I mean, honestly, it's like you mentioned, he's got a lot of underground New York rappers on here. I'm not even that familiar with most of these guys, and he's lately been shouting out artists of that ilk. Like, he's a big fan of Ka. Ka's an older rapper, but he put out a really well regarded project earlier this year under the Hermit and the Recluse name, and it's funny because in terms of like mainstream artists, even artists that we've reviewed or acknowledged, like, he hasn't really associated with much of any of them recently. I mean, Mac Miller probably would have been someone he was in the studio the most with, and obviously we know that's not going to happen anymore. So in terms of contemporary, it's tough, man. I nothing comes to mind, to be honest. It's like, I wanted to say Action Bronson at first, but like Earl just tries harder than Action, and Vince, I mean, they're cool, but like Vince definitely does different stuff. He's really more gang talk than Earl ever was.
Right.
It never really was about that. Yeah, I don't know. It'd probably have to be some low key West Coast artist I'd have to think of, but I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I was just sitting with that, and I think that really just highlights how much of a unique artist he is at this time. He really, like you said, he bucks conventional stardom, conventional hip hop, and if you aren't familiar with him, definitely take the time to do that. His original mixtape as well as Doris, I think, are both really strong projects to listen to. So go back and check those out, and definitely check out some rap songs. I think we're going to have one or two on our playlist. Dave, this Friday, the Grammys are announcing their candidates for their different awards for the upcoming Grammys in February. Kind of crazy that it's happening so soon. It feels like the Grammys are forever away. And I was thinking about, I was like, what do I remember about the Grammys last year? And I mean, I think one of the probably the biggest takeaways was Best New Artist. You had people like SZA in there. Who else? There was one other person. Yes, Khalid. And people were really rooting for them to take it home. But who ended up taking it home, Dave?
Alessia Cara, whose hit single had come out over 2 years before the awards ceremony.
Yeah. I mean, Dave, all she had to do was stay. And she did. She stayed in that the best new artist category, and she fucking won that shit. And then she blew up, and I was like, who the fuck's this Alessia Cara girl? I mean, she sounds like, I feel like she sounds like pretty much any other like pop female solo artist right now in a lot of ways. Although listening to this new album, Growing Pains, I was pretty underwhelmed, but also a lot more intrigued about where she could go as an artist. I thought at points I heard like some Norah Jones type vibes in there, which I thought was encouraging. But I also heard some very conventional pop, and I probably heard one of my least favorite pop solo female artist songs of the year in Nintendo games, which I think is just a fucking abomination.
Interesting. I actually
You
had
liked
that
it.
as I thought that was one of the best songs. That's funny.
Honestly, the second I heard her say like "you're harder than Zelda," like Ocarina of Time or whatever that line was, I was like, I'm out, dog.
That's
Like,
true. Ocarina of Time also isn't that challenging. If she said like Zelda 2 or something, I'd respect the line more, but it's not that accurate.
But what did you think of this follow up album?
You know, it's funny. I
Alessia?
actually, yeah, I don't think she sounds like most other pop artists. I think she's definitely like alternative pop music as opposed to just normal pop. I think part of that is because she's not like this superb vocalist, so she doesn't try and sing that way. You know, you think of her hits from the first album, Know It All, obviously Here, which was her big song, but also like Scars You Beautiful or Wild Things. I think that's probably my favorite song of hers. That was a big hit. And, you know, she kind of brings like an interesting cadence to her singing that I don't see that, you know, that easily replicated elsewhere in pop music. At least that's what I thought anyway. And I thought there was a lot of punch. There was a lot of like edge to that project as an alternative pop album. But then this album, The Pains of Growing, I was also underwhelmed. I thought it just didn't quite hit the highs of that first record or those first few hits she had. And it's weird because like you acknowledge it. I mean, when she won Best New Artist, the song they played for her as she walked up to accept the award was her feature with Zedd, Stay, right?
Yeah.
Which I actually think is a nice EDM song. I like that song.
It is.
But that was her most recent hit alongside obviously her feature on Logic's 1-800, right? And those two songs I think definitely get away from her original, you know, pop when she really, you know, started to take off. And I don't think I think she definitely was making songs like 1-800 on this album. You think lyrically a song like 7 Days, for example, I think like she definitely has like, you know, thoughts in her brain about, you know, things she'd like to talk about, but at the same time,
she's got thoughts.
I just don't know if like the songs sonically pop enough to want to hear them again. It's like, yeah, that's a nice message and you're well intentioned, but I just don't know if there's enough punch to this record. And I definitely thought song like her first song, obviously it's a few years old. I'm not telling her to sound like she used to sound or anything, but like song like Here, like that was like, you know, she was on fucking Hot 97 talking about that song. You know why? Because she was from Toronto area and she had hip hop cadences in that song. And the song was fucking great. And then she made other hits that weren't like that, like Wild Things. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And I still think there's something here, but I don't know if there's a hit on this album. I think that's a problem.
Oh, I mean, it's definitely a problem, and I think probably my feeling that she sounds a lot like other, you know, female solo pop artists right now is that her, you know, her most famous song "Stay" is an overproduced EDM Zedd hit, which I mean, you can plug and play pretty much any female vocalist into those songs and they're going to come out the same. I feel encouraged with the fact that she's trying to find subject matter and find a voice outside of just being in that conventional pop sphere. And I think this is a sign of growth for her. I just think that, like you said, there's not a lot of teeth to this album. I think the best songs are some of the softest on this, and that's going to be a funny juxtaposition to my take on the 1975 here in a minute or so. But like All We Know, I think is a song that has a really catchy chorus, builds up really beautifully, has almost like a really nice crescendo to that song. I even thought Growing Pains, like if you had to pick a second song, is a decent song. It's kind of boring. Like I think if anything, she could probably benefit from working with some unconventional producers, maybe someone like a Jack Antonoff, if she's going to stay in that pop sphere, someone that can really add some good twist to her music. But overall, I don't think she's going anywhere. I just think that she definitely needs to come out with a hit single somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching some videos recently of her performances, and like I said, she's not an amazing vocalist, but she's a great live performer. She actually sings really well, and the songs sound like the studio recordings. That's not obviously easy to replicate. But like I said, I don't know if there's that many hits here. Meaning, we might be quiet on Alessia Cara front until we get more music, and that's unfortunate because like I said, I think there's some songwriting qualities that are strong on this. But at the end of the day, if you're making pop music, you need to pop. So
ah, Alessia Cara. Well, maybe we'll have one of her songs on our list. I'm not sure. Someone that you're probably gonna make me put a song on our best of list, and I'm gonna be very upset about it. The 1975, an inquiry into
a brief inquiry
down here. A brief inquiry into online relationships. I mean, interesting title. Seems like they're trying very hard to be catchy and deep.
It's shorter than the last one.
Good point. The 1975. Their first album dropped 5 years ago, 2013.
Yep, that's right.
And since then, they've been growing steadily into probably one of the most popular, I guess, rock, like synth pop acts in the world. And this album has been lauded as one of the best of the year. I think Time put it at number 9 in their best albums of the year. And it's been getting compared to OK Computer or Kid A, one of those, one of the most influential rock songs of the rock albums of the last 30 years. Dave, is this album this good? Is this transcendent?
It's funny. I think a lot of the lauding of the album is very meta. Like it's like the lyrical content in terms of what they're talking about. It's such a good analog to what like life is in 2018, online and stuff. I think that's really the source of why people like it so much, is because they find the album very of the moment and also very relatable. And as far as list making goes, that is a pretty good reason.
Yeah, sure.
And if you do like the music, and then you have that reason on top of it, I think it makes sense why a lot of people really like the album. And obviously, as you've led on, you're not a fan at all. I actually like a fair amount of it. And I actually am much more intrigued about this band than I was before this album came out. That's for sure.
And I actually will agree with that sentiment, which is, I think, saying a lot about how much I didn't like them before. That an album which I did not enjoy very much actually made me more interested in them moving forward. I do think there's moments on this and a couple of songs in particular that stand out that I say, okay, I get it. And I can see why people really, really love this band. I think if I was 16 or 17, I would probably find them very intriguing, because I'd be like, wow, I'm very deep for listening to this music. Like, check me out. I'm super woke. I don't know, man. I found I was texting you the other day when I was listening to it. I was keeping a track by track, like just journal of my experience. I wrote down a lot of Z's for being just totally asleep or not intrigued by a song. I actually thought the back half of the album had some of the best moments. Like, I thought Mine, even though it's kind of cheesy in ways and very like soft song. Also interesting to have like a jazz song on an album. I think people expect it to be conventional pop or pop rock. I give Matt Healy a lot of credit for trying to do a lot and trying to pull a lot in. I just think that for how much attention they get and how people laud them as, like, I don't know, the next Radiohead or writing the next We Didn't Start the Fire, I don't see it. Like, it just doesn't hit with me. Not for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think all frame of reference for talking about 1975, whether you're a fan of them or being anti-fan, they're not a rock band. They're a pop act that has guitars. They don't make rock music. And they jump around genres quite a bit, and I think that actually helps make this album fun to listen to, because the moments are varied in that regard. But this is not rock. Like, next thing you tell me that modern day Panic at the Disco is rock. It's the same thing,
right?
It's just not. And like, I'm not saying you can't like it, but don't call it rock, because it's not really rock. That's kind of the issue. We don't have rock right now. All our rock is 21 Pilots, not rock. 1975, not rock. Or Greta Van Fleet, 40-year-olds rock, 40-year-old rock. So it's like, or it's Imagine Dragons and Mumford and Sons rock that's about nothing from people that have nothing to say. So
Right.
I think rock fans knowingly will be frustrated when you throw Radiohead out there when
Sure.
you're talking about this band, or even Billy Joel, right? And
Yeah.
I understand that, and I think that's a fair response. But I think if you view them as a contemporary pop act, I think that it's a better frame of reference, and I like them in that regard. I thought, they had moments that, like you said, it's a lot of moments on this, and I thought a song like Sincerity
It's
is
scary.
scary
Yeah.
towards the middle. That has a chorus, man. That has a cool background chorus. And I was like, fuck, I actually love this song. This song's dope. And then, like you mentioned it, Love It If We May. That's like the big hit. It's not even that much of a hit right now, but it's the big song of the album. It's usually the one people are talking about. It's been compared to We Didn't Start the Fire in terms of lyrical content, because it's funny. I did not hear that until people started saying that, and I still don't really hear it. It's like, it's about like,
it's in the same vein.
Yeah, it's like, it's funny. One of my friends actually brought up "It's the End of the World" by REM as a comparison,
right? Yeah,
which makes sense in terms of the subject matter, but it's also a very simple bop beat, And I don't know, I just it's an album that just flows until you really start listening to what he's actually saying.
When you told me that was being compared to, or called like the millennial We Didn't Start the Fire, I think I literally wrote like, this soft ass track, like, what is this? Like, it's not interesting. I couldn't believe that was the one that was supposed to be jumping off to me, and that seems to be the most beloved song from this album. It's actually interesting because I talked about how the second half of the album I really liked. I mean, the names of these songs are just like eye-rollingly bad. Like, you'd have to pick my eyes up off the floor the first time I read them, but I couldn't be more in love. The 13th song on the album has this really great guitar solo, and like, if they wanted to lean into like a little bit more like hard rock, sure, try it. Like, bring it on. I think that they could really benefit from adding a little bit more teeth to their songs, but I mean, I don't really see, like, you made a really great point. I don't see a lot of difference between them and like One Direction with like a better backing band. Like,
yeah, I do think that their lyrics are more prescient. Like,
sure,
it's more focused lyrics. It's more of the moment lyrics. But yeah, sonically, you're right. I couldn't be more in love. The second last track you just mentioned. The beginning of that song, I think it uses the same exact key as R. Kelly's "I Believe I Can Fly." And then, shout out friend of the show Mike Lennon helped me figure that out. But that was fucking with my brain. I was like, I heard that and I was like, is this R. Kelly? Is this Boyz II Men? I know it's something, and it's only like a lyric and a half, but it's the whole vibe is similar. And then later in that song, it's like, was it like These Feelings is also very similar to I Believe I Can Fly. I was like, it's tough to make a 90s R&B joint these days.
Sure.
So, and it's not like they're really plagiarizing. So I thought that was, a cool moment once I wrapped my head around it, which took me way too long to figure out.
What did you think of "I Like America and America Likes Me"?
Trash title, but almost as trash. The last song is the worst title. I Always Want to Die, parentheses, sometimes.
Yeah. Fucking so deep, dude. I'm telling you, if I was in high school, this shit would be like right up my alley. No, I Like America and America Likes Me. I just wanted to bring it up because I wrote down, like, is this a Young Thug track? Like, it sounds like some dreamy ass like hip hop, and like there's like this like cringeworthy distortion on the vocals. I don't know what they were trying to do there, and it didn't really hit. But again, like, it's good to have ambition, and it's good that they're talking about things and taking chances. I think some of the lyrics people found to be like very deep or interesting. I think we either went over my head or went under my head. I don't know, but overall, I mean, I think that this is maybe one of the most hyped up albums that I can't really get on board with this year. But the 1975 ain't going nowhere, dog. Like, we got like 20 more years of this shit.
And honestly, like, I like Matty Healy as a frontman. I like him as a, music celebrity. He's a dick as a guy, and he makes for a great quote. And he also like overcame heroin addiction the past year, so he's easy to root for in that regard. But yeah, like I think he's definitely the mouthpiece for the band, and he's definitely a hedonist. But also the things they talk about, I think they really speak to people, and it's funny because I mean, like you said, it's like they're really like inspired young people. I think like the quote like white girl, like put on the windows, put your head out the window music. It's like it used to be Kings of Leon 10 years ago. Now it's
right.
Yeah. And Kings of Leon also had critical merits apart from appealing to the basic white girls. Nothing 1975 are in the same vein. You mentioned the songs like, is this a Young Thug song? I think it's funny. I would love to hear what they could do with some hip hop artists, some more hip hop influence, just because my first experience with the band was when Travis Scott sampled them in 2014, sampled their song Money off their first album. And that song was great when Travis and Big Sean jumped on that. And that'd be cool. And again, they're not a rock band. So do what pop artists do. Join with the rappers,
Yeah. Then, I mean, to go back to your point about Matt Healy as a front man, friend of the pod, unofficial friend of the pod, my girlfriend Julianne, I was listening to an interview with him on XM radio, and he was talking about how he basically has this issue about like he connects with all these fans, and then he goes back to his hotel, he's all alone, and how it's hard for him to kind of have this duality. And he never really feels like a famous person, how he never feels like he's going to fit in as like a real like pop star, real star. And Julianne was like, if this is what he wrote the album about, and she hasn't listened to it yet, then Lorde wrote a better song about this when she was like 13 than this guy probably is ever going to write. So she's very anti 1975 at the moment. I actually think if she listened to it, she would like it because she's kind of basic at times like that. Still love her though, but we're just not going to have a 1975 album in our house, so I'll put it that way. I won't allow it. But we will have some of their tracks on our best of list. Probably this "We Didn't Start the Fire" for millennials. I mean,
you're so happy about this.
I actually wrote down. I just hate his voice. Like, I think the singing just does.
That's fine. How many times is that the reason I don't like indie rock? It's the same thing.
True. I think it's more like I want to like understand more what people like, and I just can't see it. I actually tweeted it out the other day, just like I think that they're bad, and it got a decent amount of response from basic white girls. No offense, shout out friends of the pod, but it's okay. Although Andrew Richmond totally on our side, so I trust his critical opinion. Dave, you ready to move on? Any last 1975 thoughts?
That's good enough. Everyone else will be talking about him still. Don't worry about us.
That'll do, Pig. Something not as many people are talking about, but still a pretty enjoyable piece of culture. Green Book, Peter Farrelly, 82% on Rotten Tomatoes for this thing. It's interesting because I left the theater and I went home and bring up my girlfriend Julianne again. She asked, "Oh, so tell me about the movie." And I was like, "Oh, it was a lot of fun, and I laughed a lot, and there were a lot of things I thought were really good about it." And she said, "Okay, like what?" And I was like, "Well, Viggo Mortensen, Mahershala Ali had really good rapport." She's like, "Okay, well, what about the actual like plot?" And I was like, "Black guy traveling through the South." And she's like, "And I was like, "Kind of it."
It's what you expect it to be,
right? And the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't really know what like the heart of this movie was other than this friendship. And I think that is probably why this movie is good and not great, because you have these two amazing actors, Viggo Mortensen, you got Mahershala Ali, but it kind of skirts so many of the deeper issues that are going on at the heart of this tale. And it's based on a true story, but a lot of it is fictionalized. That I don't think it actually says that much other than, I guess, white people and black people can be friends.
Yeah,
maybe.
and that was kind of the issue. I think the trailer for Green Book is laughably bad in terms of the movie it is. because as soon as we heard about this movie, everyone's like, it's Driving Miss Daisy all over again, except you flip the races. And it's
Hmm.
like, what's this movie gonna end? It's gonna, you know what? White guy finds out racism is bad, and he feels good about finding that out for himself, and then the audience will feel good too. It's like that's not a good message for movies,
Mhm.
And I agree. I don't think the movie is like amazing, but I think because it's honestly it's a fun watch despite some dark subject matter. Um, the rapport between Viggo and Mahershala and just that banter they have throughout the movie just makes it really crowd pleasing and enjoyable. Even if
Mhm.
there might be some issues with the plotting and the actual storytelling.
Yep.
So I think it makes sense that it's been getting some critical attention. Uh, that being said, it actually kind of underperformed at the box office. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are thinking this could be like Hidden Figures, do like really good numbers in terms of like a movie of the people that people would get up and see. And I think perhaps the marketing really hurt this because I don't think like it's not this horribly offensive movie. But on the other hand, it is about the white guy,
Right.
and maybe people aren't interested in that story.
Yeah, and Tony Lip seems like a pretty interesting guy, but how many times have we seen a character like Tony Lip in movies, whereas Don Shirley is it seems like a very unique character in terms of how learned he is, the amount of fame and success he was able to have, even though he was still in a country that was, I mean, that is still, but especially at that time was even more divided by racism and inequality. And he's a pretty complex character. I mean, he even says, "I'm not white enough, I'm not black enough, I'm not enough of a man." He's a gay black man who's
What am I?
has yeah, he has three like PhDs. It's fucking crazy, and he basically is used as a tool, a MacGuffin to drive Tony's character development.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's written by his son, by Tony's real life son, along with Farley and what's his name, Brian Curry, I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah, Brian Hayes Curry. So it makes sense that he makes his dad the focal point of this. Um, but at the same time, I really feel like there was so much more that they could have gone into. I mean, even like the scene when Tony gets called down to the YMCA because they found Don with a white man in the showers. They basically gloss over that, and he just is like, I know it's a complex world. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I agree. I think the movie just pulls its punches for the sake
Mm-hmm.
of perhaps not veering too far in one lane or the other,
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, whenever there is a moment for them to actually try and say something. And again, it's like the conclusions are obvious to anyone well-meaning person, right? But the movie still doesn't really, go there with anything. It's always about Tony being, you seeing how Tony reacts to the situation and changes as a man, you know, and it's all,
Mm-hmm.
and Don Shirley as a character in the film is basically servicing Tony's transformation as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. I do think there was, missed opportunities. But on the other hand, it's like, do mass audiences want to see lots and lots of hard N words and like blatant racism? Like, is that what we needed? Maybe not. So I'm
True.
not saying I have the answers either, but I think for what it is, I do think it. Again, I think it's still an enjoyable film that I thought ended pretty well, and it was honestly pretty warm. And I was again happy to see that given the reaction I had to the first trailer.
Mhm. What did you think of Mahershala's performance in this?
Honestly, it's pretty understated. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, he's not the star of the film in terms of like lines or anything, but also like he doesn't have as many showy scenes as Vigo does.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Mahershala likes roles like this. Again, he was not the star of Moonlight either. Still won an Academy Award for that. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, no, I think despite the fact that Don Shirley in the movie is, a guy trying to fit into the world in multiple ways, his character was kind of a straight arrow,
Mm-hmm.
not literally straight, you know what I mean? But so Uh, I don't know. I kind of would have liked more, but again, they chose not to make it, made the movie about Tony Lip, so that's what we got. But I mean, what did you think? Did you? I mean, obviously he was good, but did you want more from
Yeah,
Mahershala?
I did want more, but I feel like the scenes when he was able uh, to especially use his nonverbals, like the scene where right after Tony gets him out of the situation where he's caught with another man, and he talks him out of it, and Tony gets approached by one of his like friends from the Bronx who's somehow down in the South, and is like, oh, if you need a job, come talk to me.
Yeah,
And Tony's about to go down and talk to him, and the way that
that was good.
Mahershala has that conversation, portrays that like fear and that like longing for Tony not to go and not to leave him. I thought was fantastic, and it's those sort of moments which make me, I mean, just remember how much of a fucking class act Mahershala Ali is, and how he's like he needs more work. Just like give him more roles. I'm so excited for True Detective season 3 now, especially like seeing more and more of the trailers. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fucking sick. Although we said the same thing about season 2, and
No Pizzolatto this time, so should be okay.
true. Um, but yeah, I thought that was great. And Viggo Mortensen, so fucking funny, dude. Like the way he
Yeah.
was able to play these lines, I was blown away. I did not think he had that in him.
What did you think of both the characterization of Tony Lip, but that just in general the portrayal of Italians in the movie? What do you think of
Pretty
that?
stereotypical.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty. Like what Tony eats a shit ton, is vulgar, is street smarts. It's like,
Yeah.
and then has maybe not blatant racism, but he still has racist beliefs, at least in the start of the film, right? And it's like, and then all the other guys, like, it's like, yeah, this is some '60s Italians, right? Like they love Roger Maris, It's like it was a little off, but I thought Linda Cardellini as Dolores's wife, she was actually pretty good in the few scenes she had.
Yeah, definitely. And I really thought some of my favorite like scenes to laugh at were when she was reading the letters that Don was obviously writing for Tony. And like especially when she was reading them aloud and the guys were like, these letters pretty good. Like I really just like got a great kick out of that. And I thought the rapport between, like him and his family was fantastic and fun to be around. That's the thing. I come back to this is it's an enjoyable movie to like watch and be a part of. I just think for the players in it and for the subject matter, it could have been so much more. And they almost like played it too safe just not to ruffle feathers.
Yep.
Bit of a missed opportunity. But any last thoughts on Green Book?
No, like you said, I think I expected it to be more cringy than it was, and it really wasn't. But like you said, missed op.
Yeah. Go support it because we like Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen. Shout out the king.
Fucking Viggo, love him.
What do we talk about next week, Dave? What we got?
Yeah, next week, Wednesday, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel season 2 drops on Amazon, 10 episodes, and advanced reviews say it's didn't slow down. It's still great, and I'm excited for that. I love that show.
Hell yeah.
Obviously, just won a shit ton of Emmys for this first season. So that's on Wednesday, and then musically, we have the XXX Tentacion posthumous album, which, if you listen to our Little Peep review, you probably know our thoughts on that existence. Gucci Mane has an album. 21 Savage might have an album. Ice Cube has an album. We'll talk about that if it's actually good, I guess. And then Netflix is releasing Mowgli, the other Jungle Book movie that Andy Serkis made, that they shot like 3 years ago. It's finally coming out. So I'm intrigued to see it. None of the reviews are not super great or anything, but good talent in that. And I just want to see what this movie was, because it took forever to get made,
Yeah. Well, what do you think about this Black Mirror Bandersnatch coming out end of the month?
I just don't want Black Mirror yet.
Yeah.
Can we wait like a year and a half, 14 months? Can you just not drop it at the end of December?
Right.
We're in Oscar season, we're in list making time. And again, I know other publications make their lists already because they get to see shit early. And it's like, I don't need Black Mirror to fuck up my thinking the way Run the Jewels 3 did, the way Black Mirror did last year. Just wait. And it's like, Just frustrating.
Definitely, I feel the same way. Although one thing I will add that we'll probably talk about next week, Killing Eve finally came to Hulu, so I'm gonna finish that shit this weekend, and we're gonna talk about it next week. So stay tuned. Follow us. Yeah, seriously, follow us at Nowstalgia Pod on Twitter. It's SoundCloud.com/NostalgiaPod. Go follow our playlist again, Nostalgia Best of 2018 on Spotify, and give us a rating and review on iTunes. We love you. We appreciate you. Peace out.